Hey, pull up a chair, because what I am about to walk you through is not a rumor, it is not a whisper, it is not a maybe. This is a full-blown collapse in slow motion, and Cardi B is the woman standing at the center of it with her arms wide open, wondering how the sky fell on her head on a Tuesday. Take a beat, silence your phone, close every other tab, because the story I am dropping tonight is the exact kind of story you are going to be discussing at brunch on Sunday, arguing about at the barbershop on Monday, and quoting in the group chat until the end of the month. If you are new to this corner of the internet, welcome, you found the right place, and if you are already family, hit that little bell so the algorithm stops hiding me from you, because trust me, the algorithm has been playing games. Right? Now, I am not going to spend 20 minutes clearing my throat. We have 3 seismic stories on the table and every single one of them is stitched together by the same invisible thread. The industry is finally being forced to look at Cardi B with clear eyes, Nicki Minaj is winning by refusing to swing, and the rock dynasty duo, Beyonce and Jay-Z, just walked into a wall they built themselves. So let us lock in. Story 1. Cardi B. The recycled runway mannequin herself. The revolving door face who cannot get through a fiscal quarter without either torching a friendship, insulting a fan base, or throwing a public tantrum at somebody who dared to hold up a mirror. Cardi B was just handed a global brand ambassadorship with Old Navy, a household American label, a family retailer, a brand whose entire personality is grounded in the idea of being safe, wholesome, denim in every closet Americana. And within days of the announcement, the entire deal is under pressure, the brand is being publicly torched, and the fan Cardi B tried to steamroll last year is now the loudest voice in the room. That fan is Samyra, and Samyra is the reason the Old Navy story is no longer about jeans. It is about hypocrisy. It is about receipts. It is about a superstar who cannot stop revealing exactly who she is, over and over, in real time, while begging the world to look the other way. Story 2. Beyonce and Jay-Z dropped a surprise remix. A surprise remix in the year 2026 is supposed to be a nuclear event. It is supposed to bulldoze the charts within 48 hours. It is supposed to detonate every algorithm from Spotify to Apple Music to iTunes. Instead, the Morning Dew Donk remix, a track that was meant to serve as the final nail in a very public, very petty campaign aimed at Nicki Minaj, did not chart on global Spotify. Did not chart on US Spotify. Did not clear 300,000 streams on its debut day. And the original song, the one this remix was supposed to resurrect, actually slipped further down the very chart it was trying to climb. That is not a soft landing. That is a controlled demolition of the last remaining argument that these two are untouchable. Story 3. Nicki Minaj. And she is not even in the room. She has not tweeted. She has not posted. She has not responded. She has not done a single thing publicly since the last round of shots came at her. And somehow, without lifting a finger, Nicki Minaj is winning every single one of these news cycles. That is the part one want you to understand tonight, because there is a lesson buried inside this that goes way past hip-hop. Silence, when it is strategic, is the loudest weapon a superstar has ever wielded. And Nicki Minaj is holding that weapon with both hands. We are going to unpack every layer of this. Stay with me. Feel me? Let us start on the soft ground first, because I do not want to spend the whole night in a war zone. There is a beautiful, sunlit story sitting quietly in the middle of all this chaos, and it deserves attention before we walk into the flames. Ayra Starr has an album coming. The date is locked. August 14, 2026. The album is called Starrgirl, spelled with the double R in that signature Ayra Starr way, and it is her third studio project, released through Roc Nation. Now I know, Roc Nation is a label a lot of us have complicated feelings about, especially in a week when the head of that label is out here trying to bury a female legend on a surprise remix, but Ayra Starr is not her label, and Ayra Starr should not be punished for who signs her checks. She is a talent. She is a voice. She is one of the last remaining acts who is authentically pushing Afrobeats into the global conversation without compromising the sound. The track list on Starrgirl is stacked. There is a Leanne LaHavis collaboration that is going to melt your speakers. There is a Zayn feature that is already causing a stir in the pop crossover corners of the internet, because a Zayn placement on an Afrobeats forward record is the kind of move labels usually spend 2 years negotiating. There is a Rema record, the Starrgirl track, which is already released, and it is a slow-burning classic in the making. There is the Hustler's Anthem remix on the way, and if you have not already added it to your rotation you are behind. Solo singles like Tornado are already circulating, and the Wizkid collaboration Give Me That is doing quiet numbers on streaming without much promo push. That last detail is important. When a record is doing numbers without a promo push, it means the audience is dragging it up the charts by pure appetite. That is what a healthy artist-to-audience relationship looks like. That is what an artist looks like when the label lets her cook without micromanaging. Now, here is where I have to be honest, because I am always going to be honest with you. There is a pocket of the internet, a very loud pocket, trying to compare Ayra Starr to Tyla in a way that is not fair to either woman. The Reality Optional Caucus has decided that because Tyla did roughly 20,000 copies in her opening week on a previous release, Ayra Starr is somehow doomed to underperform. That is not analysis. That is projection. Ayra Starr and Tyla are not in the same lane, they are not in the same subgenre, and they are not competing for the same seat at the table. Ayra Starr makes Afrobeats. Tyla, by her own repeated admission across multiple interviews, does not classify herself as an Afrobeats artist. So the comparison is engineered dishonesty. It is a stan culture trap designed to pit two black women against each other because the internet is more comfortable staging a fight than crowning two winners. The loudest woman in the Afrobeats conversation right now is Tems, full stop. Tems is currently charting 2 records, What I Need and Rain Dance, on the Hot 100 simultaneously. That is the throne. And the seat directly next to Tems, by every honest metric, should belong to Ayra Starr. She has earned it. She has been earning it for years, quietly and consistently, without needing to insult anyone else's fan base to keep her name in the headlines. So this is the moment where I need you, the person watching, to convert your talk into support. Do not be the fan who tweets loudest and streams the least. Do not be the person who screams about representation online and then does not put a single dollar or a single stream behind the artist you claim to love. Pre-order Starrgirl. Add it to your library. Stream it front to back on day one. Buy the physical if you can. Because the reason artists like Cardi B and a few of her contemporaries are watching their releases sputter is precisely because their fan bases have mastered the art of loud allegiance and quiet abandonment. They shout on Twitter and they vanish on Spotify. Do not be that for Ayra Starr. She deserves better than that. She has always deserved better than that. Alright. That is the sunshine. Now we walk into the storm. Beyonce and Jay-Z. The rock dynasty duo. The two people who have spent the last few weeks throwing very careful, very calculated shade in Nicki Minaj's direction, culminating in a Yankee Stadium stop on tour where Jay-Z decided the mature move was to fire off a fresh diss on his own wife's remix. Let us talk about what actually happened when that record hit the internet. The Morning Dew Donk remix, a remix built for a moment, engineered for a headline, positioned to end a conversation, failed. And I do not use that word lightly. When I say failed, I mean by every measurable industry standard, by every objective data point, by every dashboard the labels themselves use to determine whether a release lives or dies. It failed to debut on the global Apple Music Top 200. It failed to debut on the US Apple Music Top 200. The original song, the parent track this remix was supposed to elevate, actually experienced downward movement on the global Apple Music Songs chart in the same tracking week. Read that sentence again. The remix, which was designed to inject fresh oxygen into the parent song, actually accelerated its descent. That is not a stall. That is a chart reversing its own gravity to reject the drop. On Spotify, the remix did not clear the US Top 200 and it did not clear the global Top 200. On the debut day, the streaming total did not touch 300,000. 300,000 streams. On a Beyonce and Jay-Z release. In 2026. In an era where their combined discography is available in every taxi, every gym, every restaurant, every airport lounge in the developed world. Let me put that number in perspective. There are TikTok-only songs, released by teenagers with zero label support and no marketing team, that clear 300,000 streams in 12 hours. There are internet-native indie tracks with no radio budget that outpace this remix on day one. There are Afrobeat singles from artists half the Carter's age, working out of studios with a fraction of the budget, doing double that number by their first weekend. This is not a hater talking point. This is math. This is the plain arithmetic of a market that has decided the surprise drop era is over for people who use surprise drops as weapons instead of gifts. And here is the part the Rock Dynasty duo does not want you to notice. Historically, when Beyonce releases a surprise track, the internet detonates. That is the entire point of a surprise drop. The word surprise is doing all the heavy lifting. You surprise the public because you know the shock value is going to translate into raw numbers. That is how the Lemonade era worked. That is how the visual album strategy worked. That is why the mythology around Beyoncé's rollout tactics has been so untouchable for so long. Because the surprises detonated. Every single time. Every single time until this one. This one did not detonate. This one landed with the softest, saddest, most audible thud the fandom has heard in a decade. And the reason it landed that way is because the audience, the general public, not the stan base, has clocked exactly what this remix was. It was not art. It was not romance. It was not a spontaneous creative moment. It was a coordinated jab at a woman who has not said a word in months. And the audience does not reward coordinated cruelty. The audience rewards inspiration. When you drop bitterness instead of inspiration, the numbers reflect that. Now, defenders will say, oh, it was just a surprise release, it was not meant to chart, they were doing it for the culture. Take a beat with me. If you release a track under the biggest brand names in music history, the Carters, Beyonce and Jay-Z, and your track cannot clear 300,000 streams in a full debut day, you have not done it for the culture. You have exposed the ceiling of your current cultural relevance to a woman who did not even have to show up for the fight. Nicki Minaj did not release a diss. Nicki Minaj did not go on a podcast. Nicki Minaj did not tweet. Nicki Minaj said nothing. And her silence outperformed their entire remix rollout. Let that sit in your chest for a second. Because the implications of that fact are enormous for every artist watching from the sidelines. Because there is a bigger message here. Nicki Minaj is doing what champions do when they know the fight will find them. She is sharpening the blade. She is not swinging back on their timeline. She is not letting Jay-Z bait her into a response he can then edit and clip and weaponize on his own tour dates. She is watching. She is documenting. She is stacking. And when she finally does open her mouth, it is going to be a coordinated, comprehensive, career-defining response, not the quick jab everybody keeps demanding. Remember, a few months back, when Jay-Z made a set of comments about her son, her 5-year-old son, Nicki Minaj said absolutely nothing back to him. Nothing. She left them talking to an empty room. And a lot of people at the time read that silence as weakness. Let me tell you what it actually was. It was patience. It was math. It was somebody who understood that responding to a 5-year-old related dig on the wrong day would only give the news cycle oxygen. Nicki Minaj waited. Nicki Minaj is still waiting. And the reason she is still waiting is because when she finally moves, she wants the entire ledger closed in one motion, not spread out over 4 blog posts and 2 press cycles. Nicki Minaj is not looking for the news hit. Nicki Minaj is looking for the knockout. There is a very important difference. Alright. Deep breath. Because now we walk into the main event. Cardi B and the Old Navy situation. I want you to buckle in for this one because the layers on this story are almost too rich to unpack in one sitting. A few days ago, Cardi B was formally announced as a global brand ambassador for Old Navy. This is a massive commercial contract. This is the kind of deal that sets a household name up for a decade of merchandising leverage. This is not a one-off partnership. This is a headline commitment. And Old Navy, being the family-forward, denim-focused, wholesome Americana brand that it is, chose Cardi B to serve as the face of the entire fall denim campaign. She did the shoot. She did the interviews. She released quotes. One of the quotes she released, and I want you to hear this in full, was that finding a pair of jeans when you have a BBL is difficult. Difficult. Take a beat with me. It is not difficult to find jeans. It is difficult to find jeans when you have paid a surgeon to install a silhouette that no fabric on this earth was designed to accommodate. That is a manufactured problem, not a market gap. And the fact that Old Navy leaned into this framing, packaged it, and pushed it out as if it were relatable content tells you exactly how out of touch the marketing team over there has become. They have confused celebrity gravity with cultural literacy. Those are not the same thing. But the quote was not the problem. The quote was the warm-up. The problem was Samyra. Samyra is a content creator. Samyra has been active online for years. And Samyra had a run-in with Cardi B roughly a year ago, when Cardi B publicly mocked her own fan base by calling overweight fans a name that no responsible superstar should ever direct at the people funding her lifestyle. Samyra called Cardi B out at the time. Samyra did what a responsible member of the public should do. She said, "Hey, this behavior is not okay, this framing is fatphobic, this rhetoric is harmful to the exact demographic that made you rich." That was Samyra's crime. That was her only sin. Speaking honestly about a superstar's public rhetoric. Cardi B's response? Cardi B mocked Samyra's body. Cardi B ridiculed her appearance. Cardi B dragged her across the internet with a level of viciousness that would have ended a normal career overnight. But because Cardi B has been shielded by the industry, protected by the press, cushioned by a fan base that has never once required accountability from her, she walked away from that incident without a scratch. Samyra took the hits and moved on with her life. She did not beg for an apology. She did not run a redemption tour. She did what dignified people do. She kept building. Fast forward to this month. Old Navy announces Cardi B as their ambassador. And Samyra, watching from the sidelines like the rest of us, decided enough was enough. Samyra publicly addressed the deal. Samyra pointed out, correctly, that a brand whose target consumer includes millions of plus-size shoppers should not be handing a global ambassadorship to a woman who has publicly demeaned that exact demographic. Samyra was not asking for a boycott. Samyra was not asking for Cardi B to be cancelled. Samyra was asking a simple, adult question. Is this the person you want representing the brand? That is a question every marketing department in the country should be able to answer without a 2-week internal audit. Cardi B's response was not measured. Cardi B's response was not adult. Cardi B's response was not the calm, considered pushback of a woman confident in her position. Cardi B went on a rant. A public rant. A rant that was recorded, transcribed, and clipped up across every platform within hours. And in that rant, Cardi B did the one thing that no brand ambassador should ever do. She confirmed every accusation her critics have been making about her for the last 3 years. She did the marketing department's job for them, only in reverse. She built the case against her own contract, on camera, in her own voice, and posted it to the world. In her own words, Cardi B said, and I am paraphrasing to keep this clean for the audio, that she does not really mess with anyone directly, but that anybody attempting to take money out of her pocket is essentially taking food out of her children's mouths, and that this is the reason she becomes what she called a whole demon about her income. Take a beat and sit with that phrasing. A whole demon about her income. That is the framing of a woman who has just been caught, on the record, admitting that the reason she is going after Samyra is not because Samyra is wrong. It is because Samyra threatened her paycheck. That is not a defense. That is a confession. In a court of public opinion, that soundbite alone would be enough to end an endorsement negotiation before the ink dried. And then she kept going. Cardi B told Samyra to, quote, calm down. She dismissed the criticism as, quote, not that serious. She said she was not going to apologize. She said she was not going to get on her knees. She said she was not going to read a book. She said her fans were not offended, and that anybody who was offended had their own issues to work through. Every single sentence out of Cardi B's mouth was engineered to punch downward. Every single sentence was designed to shrink the person raising the concern. This is a masterclass in how not to respond to a legitimate criticism. This is what it looks like when a public figure believes their platform makes them immune to accountability. And this is exactly the behavior Old Navy just tied their fall campaign to. Now, here is the part that I truly need you to hear. Because everything I have just walked you through is bad enough on its own. But when you stack this incident next to the way Cardi B has publicly responded to other superstars, the hypocrisy is so blinding it becomes almost unwatchable. When Nicki Minaj defended her husband, a man who was 14 years old when the incident he was accused of involved took place, and who served his time under the legal system, the entire internet dragged Nicki Minaj through the mud. Cardi B was among the loudest voices in the pile-on. Cardi B publicly and repeatedly framed Nicki Minaj as a woman who defends the indefensible. Cardi B built her entire moral positioning off the back of that framing for months. Months. That was the pedestal Cardi B climbed on to declare herself the more responsible mother, the more accountable citizen, the more principled public figure. And the internet applauded. The internet handed her the crown. The internet accepted her framing without ever asking whether the framer would pass her own test. Now, in this exact moment, Cardi B is publicly defending a partner of hers, Stefon Diggs, over a situation with a woman named Chris who has, according to Cardi B herself, changed her story multiple times. That is the exact same defense structure Cardi B mocked Nicki Minaj for using. The exact same. The story changed multiple times. The individual served time. The situation is more complex than the headlines suggest. Every single line of defense Cardi B is using right now for her own partner is the identical language Nicki Minaj used, and was crucified for. Every single one. Not similar. Identical. Word for word, argument for argument, framework for framework, Cardi B is running the exact playbook she publicly incinerated Nicki Minaj for running 2 years ago. The internet noticed. And that is the earthquake underneath this Old Navy story. Because Old Navy did not just sign a rapper. Old Navy signed a walking case study in double standards. Old Navy signed a public figure whose only consistent brand attribute is the ability to hold two contradictory positions in the same week without breaking a sweat. And the public, not the stan base, the general public, is finally, refusing to look the other way. Feel me? And before anyone accuses me of piling on Cardi B for sport, understand this. Cardi B could end this news cycle tomorrow. Cardi B could hold a press conference, own the fat phobia moment, apologize sincerely to Samyra, retract the double standard on the Diggs situation, and reclaim the higher ground in a single afternoon. Nobody is stopping her. Nobody is blocking that path. The reason Cardi B has not done it is because Cardi B has been trained by a decade of protective press coverage to believe she never has to. That training is the trap. That training is the reason the Old Navy story is escalating instead of dying. Every single time Cardi B could pivot to accountability, she pivots to escalation, and every escalation deepens the receipts drawer that the internet is already pulling from. There is a segment of the fan discourse right now that is doing extraordinary heavy lifting to reframe Cardi B's behavior as authenticity. They are calling her rants real. They are calling her tantrums honest. They are calling her double standards relatable. Take a beat and interrogate that framing. Because that same fan segment, when Nicki Minaj does anything even 1/10 as sharp, immediately labels her a bully, a woman hater, a menace to the industry, a bad role model, a threat to female empowerment. The framework is not consistent. The framework is not honest. The framework is designed to protect one woman at the expense of the other, and the general public is finally clocking the game. The framework is not analysis. The framework is fandom dressed up in journalism cosplay. I want to pause and read you back a piece of commentary that surfaced on the internet in the last 24 hours, because it captures the temperature of the moment better than anything I could paraphrase. The commentary, from a fellow content creator, laid out the parallel between Cardi B's current defense of her partner and Nicki Minaj's earlier defense of her own family. Point by point. Precedent by precedent. And the observation was devastatingly simple. Every single accusation the media has ever leveled at Nicki Minaj, Cardi B has, over the last 3 years, publicly demonstrated as her own behavior. Every one. The bullying. The double standards. The defense of a partner accused of wrongdoing. The mockery of critics. The refusal to apologize. The insistence that any pushback is unfair persecution. Every trait the delusional caucus insists is Nicki's, Cardi B has embodied on camera, on record, in her own words, in this exact news cycle. There is a moment in that commentary where the creator says, and I am summarizing here, that Cardi B has literally proven, in real time, that she is exactly the kind of person she has spent her career accusing Nicki Minaj of being. And that observation is not just a burn. That observation is a receipt. Because when you replay the last 5 years of Cardi B versus Nicki Minaj discourse with that filter in mind, every single controversy reorganizes itself around the same central pattern. Cardi B accuses. Nicki Minaj absorbs. Cardi B performs. Nicki Minaj proceeds. Cardi B talks. Nicki Minaj ships albums. That is the actual story arc, and the industry press has been contorting itself for half a decade to prevent that arc from being obvious. That is not a coincidence. That is projection at industrial scale. And projection at that scale, when it collides with a brand ambassadorship, is not just embarrassing. It is a commercial liability. Because Old Navy is not signing a rapper for the artistry. Old Navy is signing a rapper for the alignment. And when the ambassador's public conduct actively contradicts the brand's stated values, the ambassador becomes a marketing risk. That is where we are tonight. Cardi B is a marketing risk. And the whispers around the deal are getting louder. Sources inside the retail partnership world will tell you, off the record, that when a fresh ambassadorship generates a negative sentiment spike within its first week, the exit clauses in the contract get dusted off. Not activated. Just dusted off. Which is corporate language for we are watching. Now, I want to address the fans directly, because I know some of you are watching this and getting defensive. If your only response to this breakdown is that I am hating, I want you to sit with something. I did not write Cardi B's rants. I did not choreograph her contradictions. I did not force her to compare her income to her children's meals in the middle of a corporate crisis. I did not tell her to mock Samyra's body last year. I did not tell her to defend the exact same behavior in her own partner that she condemned in Nicki Minaj's family. Every single one of these receipts is Cardi B's own paperwork. I am just reading them out loud. If that feels like hate, that is a you conversation with yourself, not with me. And here is the meta point that ties everything I have said tonight together. The reason Nicki Minaj is winning right now, the reason her silence is louder than the Rock Dynasty duo's entire remix rollout, the reason her absence from the Cardi B news cycle is more powerful than any tweet she could have posted, is because Nicki Minaj understands something the rest of the industry has forgotten. Cultural gravity is earned by consistency. Cardi B is not consistent. Beyonce and Jay-Z, on this issue, are not consistent. The only consistent player in this entire chessboard is the woman who has said absolutely nothing. And the audience is starting to notice. That is why the Old Navy contract is under pressure. That is why the Morning Dew Donk remix flopped. That is why Ayra Starr, an artist with no beef in the room, is being positioned as the next rising queen of the global Afrobeats conversation. Because the audience is tired. The audience is tired of the tantrums. The audience is tired of the double standards. The audience is tired of watching one superstar be dragged for behavior another superstar performs weekly. And the audience is voting with the only currency that matters: streams, ticket sales, chart movement, and the collapse of a brand deal that was supposed to be untouchable. There is another dimension to this story that most commentators are refusing to touch, and I am going to touch it right now, because if I do not, nobody else will. The industry itself has a Cardi B problem. Executives at labels, publicists at agencies, marketing directors at brands, they have spent the better part of a decade building a protective ring around Cardi B because her celebrity value was too high to interrogate. Every scandal was buried. Every rant was rebranded. Every contradiction was recycled as personality. That worked in 2019. It worked in 2021. It worked in 2023. It is not working in 2026, and the reason it is not working is because the audience has aged. The audience is more media literate than the marketing departments assumed. The audience knows how a protective ring looks, and the audience is done pretending it does not see one. Meanwhile, Nicki Minaj never had a protective ring. Nicki Minaj had a barricade of critics from day one. Nicki Minaj had headlines invented about her before she had a chance to write her own story. Nicki Minaj built her empire on hostile terrain, without label protection, without press insulation, without the benefit of the doubt that Cardi B has been extended over and over again. So when Nicki Minaj sits in silence right now, she is not being lazy. She is being strategic in a way only someone who has had to earn every inch of ground the hard way can be. And that strategic silence is bending the entire news cycle around her without her even lifting a finger. Old Navy needs to sit with that. Because if Old Navy thought they were purchasing celebrity gravity when they signed Cardi B, they were actually purchasing a ticking scandal generator. And the alarm is ringing. Samyra rang it. The internet amplified it. And the marketing department at Old Navy is going to have to decide, in the next few weeks, whether the campaign gets quietly rolled back or whether they double down and hope the story fades. If they double down, they are betting against a public that has already made its judgment. If they roll back, they are admitting they should have vetted the ambassador more carefully. There is no third option that keeps everyone comfortable. Beyonce and Jay-Z need to sit with that too. Because the Morning Dew Donk remix was not just a chart failure. It was a strategic failure. It exposed the ceiling of the Carter's brand on a petty conflict, and every rival label in the industry now has a data point they did not have last month. That data point is going to shape negotiations, feature requests, collaboration decisions, and rollout strategies for the next 12 to 18 months. The Carters just handed the entire industry a receipt that says, on this particular battlefield, we can be outperformed by a woman who is not even in the fight. And Ayra Starr, beautiful, quiet, focused Ayra Starr, walks into her August 14th album release date with the wind at her back precisely because the audience is looking for artists who are not participating in this circus. Starrgirl is arriving in a market that is starving for something that feels clean, focused, and confident. That is a gift a lot of artists never get. Ayra Starr is getting it. Let us make sure she uses it. Because a career-defining rollout does not happen on vibes. It happens on numbers, on repeat streams, on shared playlists, on family group chats forwarding a track before breakfast. Ayra Starr has built the record. Now the audience has to build the launch. That is how a real coronation works, and Ayra Starr is exactly one album away from that coronation being permanent. Look. I am going to leave you with a question, because I want the comments section to be alive tonight. If Cardi B loses the Old Navy contract, is it because Samyra spoke up? Is it because the general public finally connected the dots? Is it because Nicki Minaj's strategic silence made it socially acceptable to hold Cardi B to the same standard everybody has been holding Nicki to for a decade? Or is it a mix of all three? Drop the answer in the comments. I read them. I read all of them. And I want to hear from every single one of you. Second question, because I am greedy tonight. If Beyonce and Jay-Z release another surprise track in the next 90 days, does it perform better or worse than the Morning Dew Donk remix? Drop your prediction. We will circle back to it. Whoever calls it right gets a shout out on the next upload. Third question. What do you think Nicki Minaj is actually working on right now, in the studio, in the vault, in the writing room? Because make no mistake, Nicki Minaj is working. Nicki Minaj is not on vacation. Nicki Minaj is not on hiatus. Nicki Minaj is building. And when that build is done, the Rock Dynasty duo, Cardi B, and every commentator who has spent the last year prematurely writing her obituary is going to be forced to eat every single word on camera. Drop your predictions. I will hold on to them. Before I let you go, 3 more things. 1. The Ayra Starr Starrgirl album drops August 14, 2026. Pre-order it. Stream it. Share it. Do not be the fan who talks loud and moves quiet. Ayra Starr does not need the noise. Ayra Starr needs the numbers. Bring the numbers. 2. Watch what Nicki Minaj does over the next 30 days. She is not asleep. She is not scared. She is not out of the ring. She is loading a response